Hey guys, welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be sharing my DIY cheap and easy wall-mounted wood shelves. This is a super easy, budget-friendly project you can do in one weekend. I decided to make these wall-mounted shelves to put in my kitchen dining area to display some of my decor. And I just used some basic pine wood that I had laying around left over from a different project. My wood was already cut to a size that worked perfect. So I just started this project by laying out my pine wood boards and giving them a good sanding with my orbital disc sander. Of course, you could do this by hand too. I think I used about a 200 grit sandpaper just to smooth out all the imperfections. I made sure I sanded my edges as well, especially the side cut rough edges. And then I propped my boards up on these little triangle painters here. These things are the best, and if you do a lot of DIY projects, I highly recommend them. I will have them linked below for you. So after my sanding, I just gave my boards a good wipe down with a damp rag, followed by some tack cloth. To get really good results here, you're going to want to make sure all the dust, debris, particles is removed, and tack cloth is a really good way of helping make sure that happens. Since these are pine boards, and pine typically doesn't have a great result when you stain it, I made sure I used a wood conditioner before I did my staining. If you're using pine boards, I highly recommend you do the same. The wood conditioner made a huge difference for me. I have stained pine in the past and definitely see a huge improvement by using the conditioner. I prefer to use rags for applying both conditioner and stains. The conditioner only takes about a half an hour to soak in before you can start staining, so this project can move relatively quick. Like I said, I did it in one single weekend. I chose a dark walnut stain. When it comes to staining, I have less experience than painting, so my methods probably aren't perfect, but what I like to do is just make sure my application is even, especially with this pine wood, which isn't the best, so you want to make sure you avoid oversaturating any areas and letting it get blotchy, and definitely work with the grain of the wood. I waited probably a half hour to an hour before I flipped my boards and did the other side. And I ended up doing 2 different coats of my stain on each side because I wanted a nice dark rich color. And when you stain something, it's always important to use a top coat to make sure it's a durable piece of furniture and protect it over time. My stain was an oil, but I chose to try a water-based acrylic top coat, which had a milky tint going on, but dried nice and clear. I used a sponge brush to apply it, and that worked really nice. I prefer to work with sponge brushes over paint brushes for top clear coats like this. The key here for a nice smooth finish is to make sure you stir your polyurethane or whatever your top coat is very slowly as to avoid getting any bubbles in it, and making sure you don't overwork your product when you apply it to your piece. I applied 2 layers of my polyurethane just to make sure I had really nice coverage, and between the coats I did run over my boards with some 400 grit sandpaper real quick just to make sure everything was nice and smooth. With most top coats, they're really runny formula, so it's really easy to get drips, so you just want to make sure you constantly watch that and go back to some of those places you already may have covered just to double check that there's no drips. Here's what my boards looked like after I was done. I'm very happy with the color. I really like it. It's exactly what I was going for, and I can seriously tell the conditioner made a big difference of how that stain applied to the wood. These are the wall brackets that I chose to use. I wanted something slightly rustic, but still really classic looking. These are solid metal brackets. I purchased them off Amazon. I will have these linked below as well. They weren't super cheap, but like I said, I wanted something to have a nice, clean, polished look. So then I went ahead and started to mount these on the wall. First thing I did was make a mark in the center of my space where these shelves were gonna hang, so I knew exactly where my center point was. Having a level is absolutely important for doing this. I made marks on my wood to know exactly where my brackets were gonna be, and using that center mark, I was able to mark where the brackets were to be drilled in. And of course, if you're not mounting yours directly into studs, getting really heavy duty drywall anchors is very important. I purchased some brand new ones right before this project. And of course, this would go really quick if you have a good drill. My drill does not work very well for screwing in screws, so I had to hand screw them in. My drill is seriously on its last leg. So basically I just repeated the process for all of the brackets, really utilizing my level, checking my measurements, and making sure everything was looking straight as I went along. Pine is notorious for being very warped, so of course I saw a little bit of warpage with mine, but once you screw the screws into the boards themselves, they will definitely straighten out a good amount. The only part of this I didn't think fully through was that my screws were silver and they stuck out like sore thumbs. I later went in and replaced all my screws. After my brackets were in place, I set my boards on top of both of them, making sure they were straight exactly where I wanted them, and marked off where I needed to drill into the boards to screw them in. During this part, you have to make sure you're very careful not to drill all the way through the wood, and that your screws are smaller than the thickness of your board. In a perfect world, I probably would have chose thicker boards for this project if I was buying something new, but like I said, I really wanted to utilize what I had on hand. And when I finished mounting my shelves and switching my screws out to black screws, I was super excited to add some of my decor to them. This isn't necessarily a permanent arrangement, but I was just excited to start putting some stuff up. Over time, I think I will get a better idea of how I want to display some of these items and collect new ones as well. So here's a final overview of what my shelves look like. Like I said, this is a super easy and pretty cheap project. You can do it in a weekend. I will have everything linked and listed below if you're interested. I hope maybe this inspired you to get working on some of your own DIY household projects. And if you're into those type of things, make sure you subscribe to my channel. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye!